Well, hello, amazing artists. Today we are going to practice some different watercolor techniques. So you are going to take your piece of paper and you're going to fold it into 6 sections. And we're going to do that by folding it like a hot dog. And then we're going to fold it kind of like a tri-fold pamphlet. Just like that. And you're gonna have 6 sections, and you're gonna label those 6 sections right off the bat. All right, so I'm gonna label them with all of the different watercolor techniques we're gonna try. So this is gonna be wet on dry. So that's wet watercolor on dry paper, wet on wet. So this is gonna be wet watercolor on wet paper. We're gonna have a resist. And we're gonna have salt, and we're gonna have alcohol. This is rubbing alcohol, of course. I can't spell anything. And lifting. All right. Okay, so I've got all my sections labeled. Now I am going to paint, and I have my set of watercolors and my water. And you guys have used watercolors before, so you know you want to get your paintbrush nice and wet, and then you want to get your watercolor nice and wet so that it can wake up. Now, of course, these are semi-moist, so if you touch them, they are sticky, but you still have to get water on them to wake them up. You don't want to be gouging out your watercolor, which is what's going to happen if you don't have enough water. So I'm going to put some water on there, and I'm just going to kind of put my paintbrush on it until I can see that it's got color on it, and then I'm going to paint. So this is wet on dry, so I've got a dry paper and I've got my wet paintbrush, and this is what it looks like. And of course, to change my color, which I'm gonna do because I've got a nice big area there to cover, I'm gonna clean my paintbrush all the way off in the water cup. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm gonna add some water, and I'm gonna load up my paintbrush until I can see the color on it, and then I'm gonna keep painting. Now, of course, this is semi-moist paint. I'm gonna mix it to color a little bit, because why not? This is semi-moist paint, which means that if you do it too thick, you are going to have a sticky artwork. So notice I painted right over where it says wet on dry. If I was doing it too thick, I wouldn't be able to see those words. So that is a way to tell if you're doing it well. All right, so that's doing my painting on dry paper. Now for wet on wet, I'm just gonna wet this section of the paper. Not the whole paper, just that section. All right, and then let's see, I'm gonna get 2 different colors. I'll load up my paintbrush. I'm just gonna see what happens when I go to paint on wet paper with my watercolor. Oh, see, I can see that it spreads a lot more, so that's a different technique that I might want to use at some point. I'll use purple. All right. So you can see the difference between wet on dry and wet on wet. Wet on wet, it spreads a lot more. Now for resist, oh, I can't resist finding my crayon. Okay, so for resist, I recommend a light color crayon, just because the resist is going to show up a lot more. But you guys did this a lot in kinder and first grade, where you did a drawing with crayon and then you used watercolor on top of it, and the wax and the crayon kind of resists the color. So using a light color is usually going to give you the best effect, because you can really see the brightness of the crayon stand out. So like you can see there, get some more paint on my brush. All right, so see there's the resist. I can see the wax of the crayon has pushed away the watercolor. All right, so now this one's kind of fun, and unfortunately for you, I'm gonna be coming around and doing this because I don't have enough for every single person. But this next one is going to be salt. And this is one that you're not necessarily gonna see the results of immediately, if memory serves. And that's okay. But when it dries, it'll have a cool effect. All right, so I'm just gonna come around and I'm gonna sprinkle some salt in that square. And oh, you can kind of see how the salt kind of interacts with the watercolor to give it kind of a speckledy look. And then when it's dry, you just like brush the salt off and then the speckledy look stays, all right? All right, so this next one is alcohol. So this is isopropyl alcohol, which is the kind that you use on your ouchies, on your boo-boos when you get hurt. Let's see, I'm gonna get some more, another color on here, some red with my orange. All right, and again, this is another one that when I'm done with the salt, I will come around and I will give you a couple of drips so that you can see what the alcohol looks like when you drop it on there. Looks pretty cool, right? All right, so our last one is lifting. All right, I'm gonna do blue for this one. So for lifting, you paint your color on there and then you take a paper towel and you kind of lift up some of the color to create a cool effect. So that's what we're doing today. You're gonna create one of these yourself, and when you're done, it's gonna go on the drying rack and you can finish up your drawing sheets or anything else you need to finish.